Hello, my name is Veer, Animus of VA Games. I'm very happy that I finally got around to making another Battlefield 3 episode, and this time we're going to be focused on infantry. If for some reason you're unable to figure out by looking at the screen that we're going to be playing this game as not an engineer, then congratulations. You're a psychic. Or more than likely, I probably just told you what I was going to be doing with this. Either way, today we find ourselves on the Tehran highway, and this map is very conducive to playing as a Recon. I'm not exactly sure what about this map makes it especially provocative for snipers, but this is a very good level to play as a Recon player. There's plenty of armor for you to use your SOFLAM on if you're using it, so this is a very good map for Recon players. And unfortunately, I have to blow your mind and tell you that most of the people that play Recon are doing it wrong. And Recons get a really bad rap for the overwhelming majority of really bad players that choose to sully the Recon name. And I mean, there's a lot of really choice words that you could use for such players. Most of the time it's Battlefield jargon like Bush Wookie or Rock Monster, which refers to when snipers get ghillie suits and they camp out in bushes like a half a mile away from any objective or the rest of their squad even. And all they do is they grab a 50 caliber bolt action rifle, or sometimes a semi-automatic if they're not that good, and they'll try to get a cheap one-hit kill with a powerful weapon at long range. Maybe for their own glory, probably just because they're afraid of an actual gunfight because they can't hold their own. And unfortunately, that's the sad truth of it. There's a lot of... If there's a Recon on your team, chances are you're going to find him in a mountain far away from anywhere where you're going to need him. And that's really unfortunate because it gives the Recon players, actual Recon players, a really bad name and a bad stigma that they have to overcome when they want to play a game. Because usually if you look in your squad list and you see a Recon, you're like, oh crap, we're not going to do anything now. And for the most part, you'd be kind of right. I mean, it's not a wrong stigma, it's just an unfortunate one, because there are good Recon players out there. Unfortunately, good Recon players are few and far between, and their uses are kind of limited on certain maps, but I'm going to use this video as an opportunity to try to enumerate at least what I think the Recon class is good for and how it can be used more effectively, and how you, as an aspiring Recon player, can make yourself more valuable to your own team. If by chance you are one of the many that have chosen the Recon class in order to improve your KD with long-range kills and headshots with high-powered rifles, then you've made the wrong decision. If offensive clout is your primary motivator, you should be aware that there are far better choices out there for you, like the Assault class, and the Engineer class, and even the Support class. The Recon class is actually even more well designed for supporting roles than the Support class. Confusing and counterintuitive nomenclature aside, the Recon class is the premier support class of the Battlefield series. Now, that is not to say that the Recon class is without offensive potential, or that the Recon player cannot be an offensive player. In fact, there is an abundance of evidence to the contrary all over YouTube that I'll leave you to find for yourself. What I am saying is that offensive capabilities should not be your only focus, or even your primary focus, because you'll be overlooking the array of far juicier benefits open to not only your team, but to you as a good Recon squad mate. I am the first to admit that I am not the best at this. Recon is not my primary mode of play. It was my first, but it is no longer my primary. I did start as a Recon back in Bad Company 2, maybe in 2009 or 10 or whatever. But it is not my primary source of play, and I haven't really done very much with it since I started flying a helicopter over a year ago. So I'm not the best at it, and there's a lot of things that I'm still learning. And you're going to notice that I don't exactly follow some of my own advice sometimes. I make a few very clear mistakes towards the end that you may be able to find for yourself. And even if you're not looking for it, you're most likely going to be able to notice several of the times where there's clearly someone in my sight. There's clearly someone that I should be able to see, but I don't see. A lot of times, like right before when I died as an engineer, that guy clearly climbed the steps, laid down, and I could see the glint of the scope from his rifle before he takes the shot. But he was completely and totally out of my sight. I had no idea he was there. So I'm not the best, and I make a lot of mistakes, and I'm happy to admit it, and if you point them out, all the more fun. Make a drinking game out of it. Every time I do something stupid, take a shot. If you're alive at the end of the video, let me know how many shots you took. Now, that being said, and in spite of all that, I do think that I am a decent Recon player. I feel that I have the right idea, the right motivation. I'm always doing something that I think will help my team. I try to spot things. I'm always talking to my squad mates, letting them know what I see. It is partly about sneaking around, and you are going to do that, and a lot of people have that idea. But it's not about sneaking around a mile away from an objective. You need to be behind your squad, or near your squad, or around your squad, so that if you see something that's going to be threatening to them, you can spot it and let them know, as you'll see that I do with my squad mate Sony in a little while. And when I get up on the bridge, I'm doing Overwatch for Sony. There's 3 guys over there, and I'm taking shots at them, and because I suck, I don't hit any of them. But I'm suppressing them. I do wound at least 1 or 2 of them. And I'm telling Sony where they are, what they're doing, and Sony's able to get some kills out of it. And so is the rest of my squad. And eventually, their enemy, their position is dispersed. And even by my own admission, I should have been able to get a kill on at least one of those guys. But even though I didn't, I was still able to assist Sony by taking shots at them and keeping them suppressed, keeping them pinned down at that location, and telling Sony where they were, what they were doing, and how many there were. Maybe Sony wasn't going to be aware of all of them. If someone snuck around, laid down just long enough for Sony to run past them, what if he had gotten killed because of it? I like to think that, the effort maybe kept him alive, gave him a better chance of survival. And that's what the Recon class is all about. That is the best thing that you can do for your squad, is helping them in that way. There are several other DHM members in this game, at least Bossman and Mac Daddy. But there is another squad mate in DHM that's with us, with me and Sony, and that is Megan, Lull for Yourself. And she eventually takes up an armor. She takes up some armor. And while she's driving around, I'm trying to spot enemy armor that may be a threat to her that she may not be aware of. And the more I can spot things like that and tell her where enemies are, where they're going, where they're coming from, and their various points of ingress and egress, she can position herself in such a way that she can intercept them. And that's important because it's a huge advantage for her to know where they are. And speaking of Mac Daddy and Bossman, even though they're not in our squad, we are all in a single party together, and Jay Specky will join us later. But they're all in a party with us, so even though they're not in our squad, we wouldn't be able to ordinarily talk with them because they're in our party. We're all talking to each other, and they're all sharing information about where enemies are going and what kind they are, what kind of numbers they have, and how they're trying to position themselves. Now, it should go without saying that the destructive interference from so many people in a party talking at the same time can be very destructive, very distracting, and that's why I was in a private chat with Sony at the beginning of this game, because in the previous map, he was my gunner, I was the helicopter pilot, and I needed to be able to hear things like locks and gunfire, and I needed to be able to hear the things that Sony was trying to tell me that was being drowned out by the sometimes screaming and not useful to me information. And so I had to invite him to a private chat. So it goes without saying that the chatter from so many people can get confusing. But when you get to know a squad, as we mostly have, you can figure out what is important to say, what is not important to say, what the rest of your squad needs to hear versus what you kind of just want to tell them. And when you get that kind of rhythm going, it's very useful to have so many people that you're working with, because they can tell you what you need or what they need, and maybe you can provide it for them, and likewise you can tell them what you're looking for. Like, hey, maybe there's a helicopter attacking us, and we need someone down here or a jet pilot to come in and get them off of us so that we can finish doing what we got to do. And that's it's useful. It's very helpful to have so many different people that can fulfill so many different roles, because even in just the 4 classes, you have so many different roles that those classes can take. Be it anti-armor, be it all-out infantry, be it support on the ground as a medic, or being a pilot or a driver of some kind. I mean, all of those different roles fall into virtually any of the 4 classes, and it's so many different varieties. So when you play with so many different people, you get the advantage of having the most amount of the maximum amount of those different roles at your disposal at any given time, and hopefully that is the goal of any good squad. Now, even in the light of all of the more obvious mistakes that I was making, the shots that I was missing, the poor aim, not being able to spot things that I should have been able to see, I still think that my most egregious sin was neglecting my equipment. I did deploy a few radio beacons, so squad mates can spawn, or teammates even can spawn on that location, and some of those spawn points were I think cleverly chosen, but I didn't use it nearly as much as I should have, and I didn't get any use out of my SOF lamp, despite a few opportunities where it probably could have been helpful. Especially since Jason joins the map later, and in infantry maps where there are no air vehicles, he usually does roll with a javelin. Anyway, what this whole thing is kind of boiling down to is that one of the most important things that a Recon player can do and harness is awareness. The more aware a Recon player is of his or her surroundings and the kind of ebb and flow of a given battle, the more aware his teammates are going to be, and the more successful his squad is going to be. And it's about using your environment just like anything else. It's not just about necessarily hiding in an environment, but that is, of course, a major aspect, but also about being able to use the various pieces of your environment to your advantage. Twice you saw that there's an empty, unoccupied vehicle right next to my position while I was taking fire, and I'm very vulnerable just laying there on the ground, so I ran and took cover in it long enough for me to recover naturally, and then I could get out and do whatever I was doing, because I wasn't going to drive it. I'm not, equipped for that. But I mean, those are things that you have to, take learn to spot on a case-by-case basis, and you become more keen to that the more you become aware of it. And you need to become aware of your environment, which I know it's funny for me to say because I miss so many things that I should have seen. But be aware of your environment and make your teammates aware of the environment. And while they're focusing more on combat, you need to be focusing on the battle and on the environment and how to help your fighters get through the environment. And learning to fight yourself will come later. I'll be the first to admit that combat is hard. Combat is really hard, and I fail at it a lot. And unfortunately, I mean, that's just the nature of the game. There are some people that are naturally adept at it, and there are skills that you can carry over from other game types and game genres like arena shooters that will help you succeed in gun battles. But a lot of it is just going to be position and timing and patience. Many of those skills I still lack and I'm still developing. But, I mean, work at it. Just give it a try, and please do not take the Recon as a way to avoid actual engagements and gunfights, because the Recon class is beautiful. It is absolutely beautifully designed, and it is very well in tune with this game's mechanics and implemented in such a way that it really complements the features that promote teamwork in this game, that everyone touts as, the reason to play Battlefield. It's so teamwork-based. As I mentioned in the last video, everything is revolved around teamwork, and everything rewards you for doing things not just for yourself, but for your team. If you spot someone that your teammate kills, you get points for it. If you repair a vehicle your teammate's in, you get points for it. If you heal a teammate or revive a teammate, you get points for it. I mean, everything about this game wants you to work together. And that's what the Recon really, really facilitates. And to do anything else with it is missing the point and doing it a great disservice. To put it another way, the main focus of this video is to eliminate the existence of rock monsters. I know that that's an ambitious goal, and I know that this video alone is not going to make it happen, but it's important to try to educate people, to let them know, hey, don't do that. If you think that you're helping your team, even if you're on the mountain overlooking Alpha or Charlie in Firestorm, you think you're doing Overwatch for your squad, you're not helping. You're a waste of a spot on your team. Kills are not the way to win a game. It is not about killing, at least in Conquest. In Conquest, it has nothing to do with how many kills you get or don't get. Your KD does not mean anything in a Conquest game. What's important is controlling territory, and that's all that matters. You can have all the kills in the game, and if the enemy team has all the checkpoints, they're going to win the game. Every single time, and that's true because the enemy is going to bleed tickets a lot faster than you're going to kill them, and that's just a fact. You're not going to kill them faster than they're going to bleed tickets if you control those checkpoints. So the only way to win is to get the checkpoints, and the only way to get the checkpoints is to get on the ground. So PTFO or GTFO?